guys, you see this? That's my Meetup Games t-shirt, the official Meetup Games t-shirt. I know how much you all love and enjoy my online poker content, but you're gonna have to bear with me while we take a break from that and we get back into the live poker streets. Coming at you guys from the Texas Card House. We're back in Texas. We're at the Rio Grande Valley location for an official Meetup game. I don't have to tell you guys about what's been going on in the world, why we've been on such a long break from Meetup games. But the drought ends today. We're getting in there, we're getting in the mix. We got 5-5 no limit Texas Hold'em, I believe. 200 minimum, 1K maximum. We're gonna get in the mix. I'm not gonna talk and babble too much here. Let's just get into some live poker coming at you guys from the Rio Grande Valley, Texas Card House location. Let's go play.
If $1,000 is the maximum that we can buy in for, then that's what I'm gonna put to work. I make my way over to the table of fellow muggers and grab a seat. I notice that they provide some interesting entertainment on the TVs to watch in between hands. Seems fun until I notice that I'm going to have this handsome fellow looking back at me throughout my session today. Kind of distracting, but I'll do my best. The very first hand delivers a warm welcome in the way of us making the nut flush with King 10 offsuit versus a short stack. Not a lot to analyze here, but we do manage to get all in by the river and win the maximum, which is about $200. Imagine if I just got up, left, and flew back to Vegas. I guess I'll stick around. We know by now that Texans love the gamble. So much so that they've incorporated a bomb pot into the game at every dealer change, regardless of whether there's a vlogger in town or not. I'm already happy to partake, and to my surprise, it gets more fun when we're dealt 4 cards instead of 2. The surprises don't stop there, though.
This gets better and better. Double board.
The dealer puts out 2 flops, which means we're all playing PLO on 2 boards and everyone is dealt in. In this hand, we have ace 8-8-7 with a couple of clubs. The flops come out and we have trips, top kicker on one board and the nut flush blocker on the other board. This seems like a great spot for a bet, so I bet $50. Half the table calls and 5 of us are off to the turns. My nut flush blocker becomes especially meaningless once that board pairs and we don't improve with our trips. It gets really tough when the player on my right leads out for a pot-sized bet of $340. We were happy on the flop, but the biggest problem that we have now is that if our trips are behind, we don't have that many outs to improve. I think about it for a while and then reluctantly let it go while hoping that I'm not folding away half the pot. We fast forward to the showdown and see that the player on my right has quads, another player had 5s full on that board, and another opponent turned 7s full of 3s, which did indeed have us crushed. As you can see, these double board PLO bomb pots are going to do their job and deliver a ton of action into this game. All right, back to a more sensible 2-card hand, although there is a straddle on, so we're playing 5-5-10 here. There's an under the gun raise to 30 before we see several callers, and we look down at ace-king offsuit. This looks as good of a time as any for a squeeze, so I bump it up to $190. I'm happy to get additional action here since my hand looks like such a squeeze, but little do they know that I actually have a top-tier hand. We get through the initial raiser, and it folds all the way back around to the player on my right. His name is Alfonso, and we've actually crossed paths before. Here we are at one of the earliest Meetup games at the Westgate in Las Vegas. Me on the right, and Alfonso wearing a shirt that says, "You're killing me, Smalls." This is about to be very ironic. Back to the action here, and Alfonso is the last man standing in our squeeze situation. He decides to defend the honor of the table and shove all his chips into the middle. It's about $500 and we're going nowhere. No pairs.
No more action. I'll put you something weaker, man.
He doesn't sound too pleased and says he attributed our squeeze to something a little weaker, where his ace-queen will be in better shape. We have one of his suits covered, so we're going to win this about 72% of the time, unless a queen comes.
Oh, there it is.
The turn and river don't help.
Sorry, that was nasty, man. That was not sorry.
You're killing me, Alfonso. All right, we reload just in time for some double board PLO fun. And in this hand, we have an ugly King Jack 3 deuce rainbow, but we do find some boards worth betting when we flop an open ender and top and bottom pairs. I bet 75 and there's one caller. We turn the nuts with our straight draw and brick the other turn. I'm going to apply some pressure to try and get a fold and bet $225. My opponent is undeterred and he calls again. The rivers aren't great. We have a straight on the one board that isn't the nuts anymore, and our 2 pairs counterfeited on the other board. My opponent doesn't know that though, and I think we can credibly represent a full house having good blockers. I bet the pot. My opponent thinks for a long time and eventually releases his hand, awarding us the whole pot. Once again, switching back to a perhaps calmer version of poker, and with the straddle on, we look down at a couple of fives. I make a raise to $40 before an opponent on my left puts in a 3-bet to $140. It's never great to play from out of position, but I came out to the Rio Grande Valley to do two things: fly the drone and flop sets. And I already flew the drone. Heads up to a flop of 9-3-3. I check and my opponent bets $100. If we were ahead pre-flop, it's likely that we're still ahead, and if he ever has overcards like ace-king that he's 3-betting with, then it's a pretty mandatory call on this board. The turn, though, is a disappointing king of diamonds. I check, and this time my opponent checks back. The river is a brick, and I'm just trying to get to showdown now, so I check it again. However, my opponent isn't very accommodating. He bets around half pot, and I think the pocket fives adventure must come to an end here. In this next hand, there's a few limpers before we look down at ace-10 offsuit. Certainly not a premium, but I think it's worth a raise anyway with good removal to some strong hands. I raised to $70 and we see one caller. The flop comes a ragged-looking 9-4-3 rainbow. Seems like a board where a c-bet will function well, so I bet $85. My opponent is a non-believer so far, and we are off to a turn card. I'm happy to see the king of clubs come in, which is a great card for us to represent, so I bet $150. My opponent looks like he might not be a full believer here, but in the end, he lets it go, and we generate close to $200 in profit in the hand. In this next hand, we open the ace-9 of spades from early position before it folds all the way around to the blinds. There's a player with a short stack, thanks to some previous hands not working out well for him, and he's looking to gamble. He sticks it in for $125. I'm not going anywhere. I've seen what's happening at this table. I'm going to call, and we're off to C5 cards. I tell him I have the best card in the deck
Ace of spades.
before the flop comes out and he reveals top pair. The turn is a good one for us, but it's maximum drama as he finds yet another queen on the river for a double up.
120.
All right, if that guy can do something reckless, then goddamn it, so can I. In this hand, I raise 6-3 suited and get 3 callers. Flop comes king, king, jack with 2 diamonds, and the action checks over to me. Not facing any 3-bets, it seems like this board should favor me, so I'm going to go ahead with a c-bet of $55. Only the big blind makes the call. The turn is the 4 of diamonds, which completes the front door flush, so when my opponent checks, I'm going to check it back and give up facing any more bets. The river is a total brick, and once again my opponent checks. So it seems like he can't be too strong here all that often, and obviously I don't have any showdown value here, so I'm going to make a bet that I would make if I had anything like pocket queens or a jack that was going for thin value. I bet $125, and my opponent wastes hardly any time before making the call. I probably turn over the 6-3 of spades before my opponent reveals pocket fives. This is what ownage looks like.
¿Sí se apuestan?
All right, never speaking about that hand ever again, and looking to the next hand, we have a PLO bomb pot, where we look down at a connected jack 10 8-7 with 2 clubs. We're flopping the absolute world here this time. We flop the nut straight plus a flushed redraw on one board, and top 2 pair plus a gutter to the nuts on the other board. Before the action gets to me, there's a bet of $50. Ladies and gentlemen, it is go time. I put in the max raise to $240, and we'll be happy to see further action at this point. There's a cold call behind me, and the player on my right makes the call. The turns are not all that ideal. We no longer have the nut straight, and once again, our 2 pairs are counterfeited. But as previously mentioned, whenever that happens, we can easily rep boats, and now we have a couple of redraws to go along with our straight. The player on my right checks, and I put out a bet of $450. The player on my left thinks for a long time before letting it go. Back to the player on my right, who decides he's liking what he's seeing, and he ships it in there. I don't think we have too much choice here. We're going to have to call, and we're going to have to see a couple of river cards. Nothing changes as we still have a straight on the one board and jacks and 7s on the other board. Time for the reveal, and our opponent shows king 9-8-6, giving him the same straight as us, as well as trips on the other board. This is bad news because it means we're chopping the one board and he wins the other, also known as 75% of the pot for him, also known as us getting quartered. We had him in a dominated spot early in the hand. He flopped a worse straight without a flush draw and just 1 pair plus open ender on the other board with no flush draw there either. The tables can turn pretty quickly, it seems, when there's 2 boards and 4 cards a man, and we get pretty unlucky here. This is a pretty devastating pot here and a pretty unlucky situation. We're going to have to reach deep into our pockets to reload and get back into the mix here. If I don't do this all that often, I really notice how gray I'm getting. If I go a long break in between vlogs, I really notice the gray hair a lot more. They're getting me pretty good here so far at the Texas Card House, Rio Grande Valley. Action is pretty good. Hopefully it doesn't slow down too much. It's still early. We started playing at like 5, a little after 5 p.m. Just about 8 o'clock now, so the Golden Knights game doesn't even start for another hour.
Hart stalled back out for a drive. Score! They called it! 3-2 Vegas!
So plenty of time here still to gamble. Game's playing pretty big, even though it's advertised as 5-5. We do these double board bomb pots. Could make or break your night right there. And then there's lots of straddling going on, so plenty of opportunity here. Down 1100, not gonna panic just yet. Room is super nice. I'm chilling in here in this private room. Dealers super on point. Seems like the wait staff and massage, all that stuff, very much on point. Everyone's very friendly. So digging it, despite being in Stuck City, Texas. We're gonna see. We're gonna keep battling and see what we can do to rectify the situation.
Back to battle here. I look down at the worst pocket pair ever created, pocket deuces, and make a standard raise. We get 2 callers. Flop comes favorable for these deuces, 9-8 deuce, giving us bottom set. I bet 50 and both players make the call. Turns the ace of hearts and action checks over to me, and I decide on a bet of 180 bucks. We'd love to see it when one of our opponents shoves all in for around $500. Unless he's got a slow played top or middle flop set, we're gonna have the effective nuts here. So when it folds back over to me, we're gonna be heads up, going into the river card, which is an inconsequential king of clubs. Pocket deuces are coming through for us, inching us a little bit out of the red, but still residing very much in Stuckville.
Sir, did you go to Oregon?
Sticking with the no limit hold'em action here and looking down at a pretty big pair this time, pocket jacks. I make a standard raise to 35 over a straddle and we see 2 callers. Team favorable is very much in the building now as we once again flop a set here, this time on Queen Jack 6 with 2 clubs. The first player checks and I bet $100. We get 1 caller and go heads up to an offsuit 3. No reason to do anything fancy here, so I go ahead and bet $315, which covers my opponent. He decides he wants to see that last card and sticks his $265 into the middle. He asks if we want to run it twice, and I oblige as per usual. And our opponent shows us the ace-7 of clubs, giving him nut flush draw. So he is drawing live, but we just need to dodge a club for the scoop. The first river is a brick, and the second river fills us up. So the jacks are good to us here and help us chisel away at that deficit ever so slightly more. By the way, I posted this Instagram story a little later on in this trip, and in case you're wondering why.
The jiggities. Hold up. That's how you play pocket jiggities.
Sigh. All right, shout out to Jamin Burton in this hand who introduced me to the Kevin Hart. That's the King 7 of Hearts. Get it? The Kevin King 7 of Hearts. Get it? So we play it and we raise it up to $60 over a $20 straddle and we get 1 caller. We flop some reasonable backdoor equity on Queen 6-4 with 1 heart. So I'm gonna go ahead and down bet it here to 50 bucks and my opponent calls. Those backdoor dreams die pretty quickly when we see the 9 clubs on the turn and I decide not to light any more money on fire in this hand other than the $110 that I already have and check fold. With a straddle on and 1 limper in this hand, and with us holding twice as many kings as last hand, we have a much more standard raise to $50 this time. But somehow, here in the deep south of Texas, everyone folds, and we only get to take down the blinds plus a limp. I guess it's a sign from the poker gods that it's time to pack it in for the night.
The backpack is on, the night is a wrap. It's like almost 1 in the morning now. You probably can't see that, but it says 12:54 in the AM. Long day of poker. I mean, we've played longer, but I think I could be a little bit rusty here in the no limit streets, grinding the live no limit streets.
been focusing pretty heavily on pot limit Omaha, as you guys know. So might not be as sharp, the sharpest I've ever been, but that's okay. We're getting into the game for a mere 5,000 United States dollars. Cash out of the game for 3,586 bucks. We lose $1,414 tonight. There was a straddle like almost every hand, sometimes $20 straddles, and then those $10 PLO double board bomb pots. Spicy 5-5 game. Really cool room down here in the very southern tip of Texas. Very well run, I would say Vegas quality level of operation here. And I believe a fellow named George bought me a sushi dinner, which was delicious. So cheers to that man, cheers to George for the sushi dinner. There is another day of the event, another day of the meetup game event happening tomorrow. Brad and I are gonna play in the tournament that's happening, which is a $300 buy-in or so. It's a WPT Steps tournament, they're calling it. And then we're just gonna hop in the 1-3 after that. If this is the end of the video and you don't hear from me, just assume that I busted the tournament. And if this is not the end of the video, let's hope that I either cashed the tournament or final tabled it or potentially won the tournament. I kind of doubt it though.